webisode. Today we're going to be talking about separation anxiety and the causes, prevention, and how to treat it a little bit. I'm Diane from the Bark Side, and with me here is Crystal.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm from the Freckled Paw. Today we're talking about separation anxiety, and Diane and I both have personal experience working and living with separation anxiety cases. So with the quarantine orders and things, we thought it would be a good idea to talk about a little bit about what separation anxiety is and go into a little bit of treatment and prevention of separation anxiety, just so that you guys can be a little bit more prepared and set yourself up for success if you do find that you have adopted a dog with some separation anxiety, or if you have a pet at home that has developed some separation anxiety from this strange at home all the time lifestyle that we have been forced to deal with. So we wanted to start first. What is separation anxiety? Separation anxiety behaviors are usually characterized by excessive panting, excessive drooling, defecating or urinating in the house, even though they've just been outside, uncontrollable barking, and our favorites being destruction of property when left alone. These things typically only occur when the dog is left alone or when they think that they've been left alone. I know one time Opal accidentally got locked into my bedroom and tore up the carpet and the door frame. And we were just in the other room. Like, we were just like on the other side of the house and we didn't hear her. But she happened to tear up a good 3-foot section of carpet and eat a door frame because she thought she was left alone. There's also a difference between, we found that there's a difference between dogs that are afraid to be left alone and the dogs that are afraid that you're not coming back. I think Opal was the dog that was afraid that we were not coming back. Her history lent itself to many hours alone at home. And so I think that she was worried that I was not going to come back for her. And she was a rescue dog, so I don't know a whole lot about her history. But I do believe that she was worried that she would never see me again. And as more research has developed with this kind of stuff, they are finding that there is a possible genetic component. So it's not something that you have done, and it's not something that you're necessarily going to experience when adopting a rescue dog. But it's definitely a possibility if that genetic component is there. The compounded stress of being in a new place and the change in routine can definitely exacerbate some of these things.
And being genetic too, I mean, it can also happen with a dog you get from a breeder where they may not just used to being alone, right? A lot of breeders have multiple dogs in the house. This is nothing against breeders but a lot of dogs who come from that type of situation could be used to having lots of things going on and other animals. And then when they come to your house, they're suddenly all alone. And, that might not have been seen before, but that genetic component could be there all along.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not anything that the human side of it is doing wrong. It's just, this is the hand you got dealt.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So Crystal and I have both had dogs with separation anxiety, and it's not always an easy road. When I first got my dog Nellie, she was my first dog as an adult, and we thought that we would bring her home and she would just have run of the apartment. I now know much better. But the first time we really left her alone for any extended period of time, she ate pretty much our entire pantry. So shortly after that, and talking to some people who knew more than I did, we got a camera to watch her while we were gone, and we were just amazed to see how different a dog she was when we left the house. You could just see the panic on her face. She was pacing back and forth. She was climbing on our glass coffee table and howling. Another problem with, living with dogs with separation anxiety is a lot of us live in apartments. At the time we were living in an apartment, and we were worried that our neighbors were going to start complaining about our dog every time we left the house. The thought of losing your housing for your dog is really scary. We loved her already, and barking and being loud and pacing, jumping on tables was not something that Nellie ever did. She was pretty much, other than the separation anxiety, she was pretty much like an out of the box dog, like just an all around awesome dog. So it hurt us too to see her like that. There's seeing your dog and you can just tell how panicked they are. It just makes you want to cry. I mean, it sucks. I never want my dog to feel like that. So it definitely, the camera was really helpful, because then at that point we knew what we were dealing with. I definitely recommend that for everyone. If you are thinking that your dog might be panicking when you leave the house, getting a camera can give you peace of mind, and also give you information that you can show to your vet and the trainer that you should be seeking out, as far as meds and in treatment, all around treatment. And if you can give them, like Crystal was talking about, the behaviors that kind of make up separation anxiety, and we do our training, and veterinarians, run their practice based on what we can physically see in our animals. So instead of just going into your vet or going to a trainer and saying, my dog is really nervous, they panic when I leave the house, being able to show them the physical behaviors, the pacing back and forth, the panting, the howling, the barking, all of these things are really helpful for your trainer and your vet to see. We can tell about how long it is before they start having an issue after you leave. And it can be helpful with the treatment too, and knowing at what point we have to start off from. And dealing with separation anxiety can be really difficult to deal with. In the past, it's been, you can't leave them alone while they are not capable of being alone, which, if you're not home from work, can mean lots of doggy daycare, people coming over to be with them, and because they really cannot be left alone for their own safety and their own mental health, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Opal and I were going through separation anxiety in 2009 and 2010. So there was no medication options. There were no camera options. Really, the only camera options were set up a camcorder and look at the footage after you put it in a VHS after you've recorded it. I mean, that's what we were working with. And a newly graduated college student did not have a camcorder and did not have the money to purchase one. So Opal spent a lot of time with me. She spent a lot of time in the car with me. I ended up putting a remote start on my car, so those mornings when it was really hot or it was really cold, I could keep the car a little bit more temperature comfortable for her while I was sprinting through Target. And that was our life, because if she wasn't with me, she was eating my house. And since I didn't have a way to watch her, it was take the risk that she was going to eat my house, or just put her in the car and take her with me. And she went with me. Like, she ate the linoleum out of the foyer. She ate the door frame. And then when she couldn't get through the steel plated door, she ate the closet door. Searching for a way to get out of the house and searching for a way to get to the other side to look for me. I could not crate her. She could bust her way out of the wire crates. And she ate her way out of 3 airline crates. So the plastic, the big plastic ones that they use for shipping, she would get her teeth around the plastic and chew on the plastic until it either would rip or she would chew a hole in it and then get out through the hole that she chewed out of that plastic. And she did that 3 times. So having a dog that panics like that is it's not fun for the dog. And like you said, it's not fun knowing that your dog is going through that at any point. So it really is important that you recognize these signs and really seek out that help sooner rather than later.
Now, Crystal, when you were going through that with Opal, you must have had some kind of a job where you were kind of doing things here and there, or what did you have to do when you went to work?
Well, thankfully, it was when I was working at the animal hospital. So when I had to work in the mornings, she would go with me and she would sit in a kennel at the clinic while I was working, and then she would just go home with me. So that definitely helped us work through it a little bit better because I did have access to leaving her at the clinic with me. But there were those days that I knew that she couldn't, like around the holidays and stuff, when we were super busy, she couldn't come with me, because the kennel was full with, holiday patients and things, and she had to stay at home. So that lent itself to making sure that all her needs were met, making sure that she was tired and that she got all of her exercise, and really just praying that she didn't need anything. Yeah. Like, it was, opening the door every day and wondering, okay, what did you eat today? Was very much forefront of my brain every time I left the house without her. So.
Yeah, it's funny, even now, Nellie will have a bad day here or there. And to be honest, I'm not sure if it's something where she heard something outside and she's panicking, but every once in a while she has a flare up. And I can tell as soon as I open my front door, she stays in our bedroom when we leave the house. And as soon as I open the door, I can tell by the sound of her barking. And I'm like, oh no, what did you do?
What?
It's just that tone, I can tell. And I feel bad for her, that's another thing too, if your dog is showing any of these things, it's really important not to punish them. They are not doing this on purpose. They're not doing it to spite you or because they're angry that you left them alone. It really is just complete terror and panic.
Yeah. They are panicking. They are terrified for whatever reason. And there's no amount of punishing them that is going to fix anything. Yeah. So, the treatment for this is very, very slow and steady. It's very methodical. You've really got to take the time to really look at what your dog truly can and cannot handle and be ready to work through those triggers one at a time. Work through your leaving process one time until you even get to the point where you can actually walk the front door. And while you're working on all of this, like, this isn't something that you can do in an afternoon. Like, your dog really can't be left alone. They really can't, like, you have to have a contingency plan. They have to have a pet sitter come over. They have to be left with a friend. Like, you really have to figure out an option for your dog to make sure that you're not undoing all of your training while you're trying to move forward with them.
And now when you're talking about too, the process of, going through your leaving, how you go about your day and getting ready to go, we do a lot of work on that, because with a lot of separation anxiety dogs, probably most separation anxiety dogs, the anxiety and the stress doesn't start when you leave the house. It's starting with all of those little cues along the way that you're going to be leaving. So your dog is already amping themselves up long before you walk out the door. So we have to go through each of those pieces, picking up the keys, picking up your work bag. For some people, it's like putting on jeans, putting on your shoes. All of those things can be signals to your dogs that it's time to start freaking out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's important to pinpoint all of those triggers and to work through them one at a time. So you feel really silly going and putting on jeans and then walking to the door and then going and putting your pajamas back on. But that's really the process of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's that slow and steady.
Yeah. What other things do you recommend people look to for help with separation anxiety?
So on top of really, on top of really working through your triggers, we really want to make sure that all of the dog's needs are being met in other ways. With Opal, I started running half marathons because she got me up every day to run. If we could have a good run, then there was a very good chance that she would not eat my house. So I, just to keep myself and her accountable, I started running, training for a half marathon, and I ran 3 of them. So like just to keep us in line, and she couldn't do the longer distances, and I had to do those on my own, but it kept me motivated to at least get up and get the 3-milers in the morning so that she wouldn't eat my house. So now we know a lot more about enrichment and making sure that, they're mentally tired as well as physically tired.
So I'm not running any marathons or half.
Yeah, I don't have to recommend that people start training for a half marathon anymore. So, but making sure that your dog's needs are being met, their exercise needs and their enrichment and training needs are being met, definitely help make the process move forward that much faster.
Right. And then what about, I know sometimes you recommend medication and CBD oil. Is that something that you're talking to their vets about, the CBD oil? Is it something you can just start right off the bat? How does that work out?
Yeah, so in some of my clients, now we have medications that will definitely help with this. When I was working with Opal in 2009, 2010, behavior medications were just coming on the market, and they were very, very new in the veterinary world. So they were not prescribed nearly as often as they probably should have been. And the medications that I was prescribed for her were not at all helpful in dealing with her anxiety. But now we have a lot better understanding of medication, and there's a lot better options for you. And those medications don't fix the problem, but they definitely help your behavior modification program move forward that much faster. It doesn't fix the inability to cope with the situation, but it just helps them feel a little bit better about the training of the situation. So that way you can get back on track with that a little bit quicker. And as far as CBD oil, so I really like my CBD oil with a lot of the dogs that I work with because it doesn't allow the brain to create a fear pathway. So the dog remembers that something scary happened. They just don't remember that it was scary. And that's a very layman's explanation for it. And there's a whole lot of science behind it. But it helps your dog cope with your leaving and your processes without continuing to dig yourself into a hole. If they've had all of these negative experiences where you do all of these things, and then you walk out the door and all of these things mean something terrible is going to happen and panic is going to happen, the CBD oil will help them not remember that the last time it happened, it was scary. So it just gives you a little bit of a cushion in case you read some signals wrong. Again, it's not going to fix the problem on its own, but it gives you a little bit of leeway that your dog is not going to continue to dig himself into a hole that you then have to dig yourself out of while you're working through all of this stuff. So I'm a big fan of CBD oil for a lot of my dogs that I work with.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about medication too, for a long time, just like, when you started with Opal, there really wasn't a good medication to be using with this. And then for a while, medication was viewed as only the very last resort. I know my opinions on that have changed to where now I think, obviously, you can't get them anyway, it needs to be done with your veterinarian's help and under their discretion. But to me, there is no reason to have your dog sitting there panicked and terrified for a very large portion of their life when we don't have to have that happen. And again, medication will not fix it overnight. It's not magic. But if you can lower their stress level a little bit, if you can lower that anxiety and you can do so safely, I believe medication to be a really important tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell my clients all the time, I really like drugs. You really like drugs?
Yeah, I mean, and people laugh when I'm like, oh yeah, my dogs are both on Prozac, or like, but it's true. I mean, it's not Prozac, the name brand. They take the generic version. They're also very inexpensive, which is helpful. It's not, that's one of the less costly parts of treating separation anxiety is getting the meds on board and then starting to do your work through it all. But
yeah, absolutely,
has help for both of my dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really beneficial having a professional help you through this. It sounds really straightforward, but having somebody that's either worked this before or lived it can really give you a better understanding of if you're headed in the right direction. It sounds easy and it sounds straightforward, and it is. It's not a difficult plan to implement, but there's a lot of little nuances that a professional can really help you make sure that you're on the right track before you really dig yourself a hole, or before you're working on it for a couple of months and then realize you're not making any progress. And
actually making the problem worse at that, going that amount of time and making no progress in a lot of ways. I mean, you're digging yourself a deeper hole.
Right. Absolutely. And cameras are really beneficial for this too. And we mentioned that earlier. It gives you a chance to see what your dog is actually doing. And when I was working with Opal, and in my first few cases, cameras were not readily available, and we didn't have them on our cell phones and on our tablets and on our laptops where we could just keep them up all the time. I remember my first client went and bought a baby monitor for her dog that you could connect to your phone. And that was like revolutionary. It changed our whole world. And as we got through it, as she started to feel comfortable leaving her dog at home, I remember that she messaged me and she was like, I just went to dinner with my family for the first time in 2 months, and I wasn't panicked that he would eat my house or trying to kill him getting out of his kennel. I was able to check on him while we were gone, and he was fine. And that piece there gives you a really good, it really helps make your progress move forward, Mister.
Yeah, I guess one thing too that we didn't talk about in terms of destruction of property and all of that stuff is that not only is it just annoying for us humans to come home and find a hole in your door, it's potentially extremely dangerous for the dog too. Nellie used to jump on a glass coffee table. If that ever broke, that could be huge. If she ate through the pantry, luckily she didn't eat anything that was deadly to dogs. I've heard of dogs breaking out of windows before. I mean, it can be very severe and very dangerous. Mm-hmm. So again, I was the person sitting in my car watching on the camera, going through my protocols and checking back to make sure that yes, my dog was safe. Yes, she was okay, and everything was fine, and checking in throughout the day once she was getting better about it. I mean, it was having that camera, that access is, I mean, again, it's like world changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as on the professional side of it, we can really take the footage that you're saying and really pinpoint, okay, you're okay. Like, we're okay here, or we look okay, but we're really not okay. And then we can address our concerns with what you're seeing before it gets to the point where they're eating the door frame or the, bedroom door or whatever. And really kind of help make sure that you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So right now, with everything going on with the COVID virus, it's actually a good time to, one, if you're already experiencing separation anxiety problems, to talk to a trainer and your veterinarian and start working through it. But also, if you've just gotten a puppy or adopted a dog, it's a good time to start working on leaving the house in small increments to make sure that you're not going to have a problem when you do go back to work full time. So doing little things like leaving them in a room alone for a little while. Of course, remember, it's always important to meet all of their needs first. You want to make sure that they've been out to the bathroom, they've had some exercise that day, they're not hungry, maybe they've had some enrichment toys and that kind of thing, and that you're setting them up for success. If you're leaving them in the kitchen with the trash wide open, I mean, you can just assume that they're going to get into it. So set them up for success, make sure that their needs have been met, and then start doing, these little tests, leaving them alone for a little bit longer each time. And you don't have to go far. Again, a lot of people are on more strict kind of lockdown. You can go out to your car and call grandma, or, do a work phone call. You could just go drive around the neighborhood with the windows down and get some fresh air for yourself, and then come back. But it is important to start doing these things, so that way if you are seeing signs of destruction or urinating or defecation when you leave the house, now is the time to work on it.
Yeah, and with a lot of our lessons, like, we've moved to virtual lessons, and one of the things that I found with my separation anxiety cases was that the dogs absolutely know that if I am in your house, you're not actually leaving. And so it doesn't let us see the problems when we're in your house versus doing a call remotely. We can see you just like this, and your dog has no idea. And so then we can talk through everything that we need to talk through, and we can share videos and things like that. But we don't have to be in your house for you to have a successful training program.
Yeah, when you show up as the treat lady trainer, they're pumped and ready to play all of the games and get some cookies. And they know, I mean, dogs are smart. They know their people aren't actually leaving.
Yeah. They pick up very quickly that oh, this is just a fun game, and if I stand here and wag my tail at the door, y'all will be back in a minute. Yeah. And that might not be your reality. And so being able to do some virtual sessions like this really help us see your reality without changing it any at all.
So that's all we have today for our separation anxiety episode. If you have any questions, please reach out to either one of us. If you have suggestions for other things you'd like to know more about, we are very interested to hear them. We want to make this a show that, you guys have input on, or if you just want to have a conversation, feel free to do that in the Facebook comments. Reach out to us. Again, I'm Diane from Barkside. My website is callbarkside.com. And on Instagram and Facebook, our handle is Barkside Training. And Crystal?
And I'm Crystal from The Freckled Paw Dog Training. You can find our website at thefreckledpaw.com, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Freckled Paw as well.
Thanks.